Welcome everyone to the channel, Insane Criminal Cases. We will tell you about the shocking criminal cases in the world. The topic of today's video will definitely interest you. Now let's find out. In the annals of political corruption, few names resonate as deeply as that of Pavlo Lazarenko, the former Prime Minister of Ukraine who, during his tenure in the mid-1990s, allegedly embezzled hundreds of millions of dollars. A staggering figure that once stood at around $200 million was believed to have been misappropriated, with reports indicating that Lazarenko funneled away $500,000 every single day during his time in office. This level of corruption not only stunned the international community but also struck a severe blow to the burgeoning democracy of Ukraine. Lazarenko's story is one of contrasts. A man who was initially seen as a reformer, a champion of economic progress, but who quickly became the central figure in one of the world's most egregious financial scandals. His downfall, a mixture of international legal battles, hidden bank accounts, and accusations of greed, captivated the public imagination. How did one man, entrusted with the future of a fledgling democracy, become the architect of a scheme that would drain his country of its wealth and jeopardize its future? And how, despite numerous investigations and accusations, did he manage to evade justice for so long, living a life of luxury while his people struggled in poverty? Pavlo Ivanovich Lazarenko was born in 1953 in the Dnipropetrovsk region of Ukraine, an area that would later serve as the bedrock of his political and financial empire. Like many post-Soviet leaders, his rise to prominence began within the local structures of the Communist Party. After Ukraine gained independence in 1991, Lazarenko capitalized on the turbulent political landscape to advance his career, positioning himself as an ally of President Leonid Kuchma. Lazarenko's political star rose rapidly, and by 1995, he was appointed Prime Minister of Ukraine. His time as Prime Minister coincided with a critical period in the nation's history, as Ukraine was grappling with the immense challenges of transitioning from a Soviet republic to an independent state with its own economic policies. Ukraine was facing rampant inflation, industrial decline, and a complex web of oligarchic interests competing for influence in the new political order. Lazarenko initially presented himself as a reformer, someone who could stabilize the economy and attract foreign investment. But behind this facade, a darker side of his leadership was emerging. While Pavlo Lazarenko held the title of reformer, his true interests were far from improving Ukraine's economic conditions. Behind closed doors, he was building a network of corruption that siphoned massive amounts of money from state resources. Lazarenko's scheme wasn't just opportunistic, it was methodical, elaborate, and deeply entrenched within the structures of the Ukrainian economy. Lazarenko used his political power to place his allies in key positions within state-owned enterprises, particularly in the energy sector. At the heart of his corruption was the manipulation of Ukraine's natural gas industry. In the 1990s, natural gas was one of Ukraine's most important imports, and Lazarenko seized control of the flow of money surrounding this vital resource. Through intermediaries and shell companies, he created a network where state money, meant to pay for gas imports, was funneled into private accounts that he controlled. One of the most infamous schemes was the creation of United Energy Systems of Ukraine, UESU, a company controlled by Yulia Tymoshenko, another future Ukrainian political figure. Under Lazarenko's patronage, UESU gained a near monopoly over Ukraine's gas supplies. Lazarenko, in return, allegedly received massive kickbacks from UESU's profits, while the Ukrainian state, and by extension, its citizens, suffered from inflated gas prices and a lack of transparency in energy dealings. It was through this kind of backdoor maneuvering that Lazarenko was able to extract enormous sums of money, often as much as $500 a day, by simply controlling who was paid for the gas and how the profits were distributed. Lazarenko also engaged in more direct forms of embezzlement. He reportedly transferred large sums of money out of Ukraine and into foreign bank accounts. These transactions were disguised as legitimate business deals but were in fact a systematic looting of state resources. According to legal documents, Lazarenko used an array of banks in Switzerland, Antigua, and the United States to launder money, making it nearly impossible to trace the true origins of his wealth. As Lazarenko's wealth grew, so did international suspicion. His lavish lifestyle, which included multiple properties in Europe and the United States, caught the attention of foreign law enforcement agencies. It wasn't long before investigations into his financial dealings began to unravel the complex web of offshore companies and bank accounts he had established to hide his stolen fortune. In 1999, Pavlo Lazarenko was arrested in Switzerland on money laundering charges. However, his legal troubles didn't end there. Shortly after his release on bail in Switzerland, he fled to the United States, hoping to avoid further prosecution. Instead, he was arrested upon arrival at New York's JFK Airport. The U.S. government charged him with laundering over $114 million through American banks. The trial, which would drag on for years, became a high-profile case, drawing attention from across the globe. During the proceedings, prosecutors painted a damning picture of Lazarenko's corruption. They detailed how he abused his position to create a personal fortune, all while the Ukrainian economy was collapsing and millions of Ukrainians were struggling to make ends meet. The legal battle was intense, with Lazarenko maintaining his innocence throughout, claiming that he was the victim of a political vendetta orchestrated by his enemies in Ukraine. In 2006, after years of legal wrangling, Lazarenko was convicted on multiple counts of money laundering, wire fraud, and extortion. He was sentenced to 9 years in federal prison and ordered to forfeit tens of millions of dollars. However, the full extent of his stolen wealth has never been completely recovered, and many believe that significant sums still remain hidden in offshore accounts. Lazarenko's corruption had profound consequences for Ukraine. His actions not only robbed the country of much-needed resources during a critical period of its development but also set a dangerous precedent for other politicians. His case exposed the depths of corruption within the Ukrainian government and highlighted the difficulty of implementing true reforms in a system where political and economic interests were so deeply intertwined. The scandal also weakened Ukraine's international reputation, particularly in the West. As Lazarenko's trial unfolded, it became clear that Ukraine's political elite were willing to engage in corruption on a massive scale. This damaged Ukraine's efforts to integrate more closely with Western institutions like the European Union and NATO. As foreign investors became wary of the country's political instability and lack of transparency. Domestically, Lazarenko's downfall also created political ripples. His ally, Yulia Tymoshenko, distanced herself from him and went on to become a significant figure in Ukrainian politics, later serving as prime minister herself. However, the shadow of her connection to Lazarenko's corrupt empire continued to haunt her political career. His downfall also offers important lessons. The international response to Lazarenko's corruption, particularly his arrest and prosecution in the United States, shows that there are mechanisms in place to hold corrupt leaders accountable, even when they operate in weak or failing states. His case underscores the importance of international cooperation in combating corruption, money laundering, and financial crimes. Lazarenko's legacy is a reminder that vigilance and accountability are essential in the pursuit of good governance and that the consequences of corruption can echo through generations. Thank you for watching our video. Insane Criminal Cases. Chanel hopes you have had great entertainment moments. Wish you all the best.